What's up, ladies and gentlemen? The Brew with Matt and Mike is back. Mike, welcome back, and let's just get right on into it. Give me your biggest takeaways from the Wisconsin-Northern Illinois game.
I think this team made big strides in less than a week. Defensively, they look very, very connected. They got a nice little three-headed monster. It was Boyd, Blackwell, and Winter leading the way. Boyd, obviously, the point of attack with 25, but Blackwell and Winter coming in with double digits. And then that secondary level of cast with Rohde, Rapp, Balauskis, guys coming off the bench. They looked way more comfortable, and they showed up offensively. And we were talking a little bit before we got on this podcast of, man, I'm starting to see why Coach Gard is excited about this group.
Yeah.
And
I think this. Yeah, I see the same thing. I said after I recapped the last game, and I said I was kind of where I was. My opinion hadn't changed a lot, but I think it's trending even higher. I'm getting even more bullish on this squad. My one big concern that I keep on saying is shooting. I don't think this is going to be a great shooting team. Went 9 of 31 from 3, 29%. And in the last game, wrote it down. They were 11 of 28 from 3, which is 39%. That's good. But 6 of the 6 threes came from Blackwell, going 6 of 11. The rest of the team went 5 of 17, which is 29%. So I don't love what the team looks like shooting-wise right now. Mike, help me out with the big guy's name. I know I'm going to butcher it.
Balauskis,
yes. So Balauskis, that's encouraging, man. His shot does look good. And I think that's going to be a huge luxury, though, for Wisconsin to have a guy like Balauskis, who's 6'10" and can shoot the rock and is a solid body as a backup. Like, I think they probably are getting him on a discount with NIL. When he hits the free market next year, Wisconsin's probably going to have to up that payment a little bit to keep him around because he's probably going to want a starting spot. And if Winter's there, and Rapp's there, he might not be starting next year if those two are back. So I think they might have a diamond in the rough with Balauskis just being a physical, solid body who can shoot. But yeah, Nick Boyd. I want to touch on Nick Boyd a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it actually blows my mind that he reached his career high yesterday with 25 points. Like, with how fast he is and how he can fill it up, like, quickly, he got to, 18 points quick, or 15 points. He looks really, really good. I think as long as he shoots as well as he has in his previous years of college, I think John Blackwell and Nick Boyd will be one of the best backcourts in all of college basketball. And so my question for you, Mike, is Purdue has a lot of hype, and rightfully so. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer. I've always thought that Fletcher Lawyer is a little overrated, in my opinion. I've always thought that. This is going to sound extreme early because Smith and Lawyer are established. Blackwell and Boyd are not established together. But do you think that Boyd and Blackwell could be comparable or even better than the backcourt of Smith and Lawyer?
Yeah, I think they both pose different problems. I very vividly remember John Blackwell last year going at Braden Smith. And it's funny, he scored a couple of buckets and maybe had a couple of assists. And I remember he barked at Braden Smith like, I'm a point guard too. I very vividly remember that from last year in a big game that they played super well at. And, bringing in Boyd, I think Boyd's a different monster than Braden Smith. Braden Smith is still athletic, shoots the ball really well. He's really good at running a team, whereas we're seeing Boyd just be a one-man wrecking crew, fast break. And credit to Coach Gard too. He's allowing him to do that. Boyd talked about it in the press conference. He's like, I haven't really played for teams that allow me to do that. He talked about, which I thought was absolutely hilarious in the press conference. He said, I played at San Diego State and the pace was way slower than it is here, which, 3 years ago, people have been like, oh, no, we're on the same pace. They play with the same. So it's really interesting to see this evolution come forth. And Boyd's really excelling in it. It's clear that Coach Gard sees the advantages he brings and creates, and he lets him give a little more wiggle room, as is an older point guard. But, you said that Lawyer and Braden are established together, correct? They've done it together. They've been in big games, been in big moments. But, I mean, if you look at it, Blackwell and Boyd, they both have their own accolades and their own outright, just not together. But I think I'm seeing the chemistry with them, and it's going to be lethal this year. And it's really cool to see. Hopefully they can stay healthy and keep building.
Yeah, and I think that's just gonna be a really fun matchup when Wisconsin does play Purdue. And I think Boyd and Blackwell are two guys who are gonna be. In the past, I've seen Smith and Lawyer not necessarily struggle, but get slowed down by athletic, physical guards. And I think Boyd and Blackwell check those boxes. Boyd is 24 years old, going to be 25 by the end of the school year. John Blackwell, he's been pretty much grown man-ish, as you like to say, since he was 18. He's very physically developed for a junior in college, and he can move his feet pretty well laterally. I just think that's going to be a heck of a matchup. And for me, as long as Boyd shoots well, I foresee Boyd and Blackwell being amongst the best shooting teams in all of college, or not shooting teams, just the best backcourt in all of college basketball. And then if Boyd shoots well, I think that's just the biggest thing for Wisconsin's ceiling. That's my biggest X factor on this entire season. I think that's what I'll ask you next, Mike, what you think the biggest X factor is for Wisconsin to reach their ceiling. Let you think about that for a second. But for me, I think the biggest thing is if Boyd just shoots as well as he has in the past, be at least 34%, 35%, then defenders have to play up on you, where now you can get to the lane and just cause havoc. You can dish to a teammate, you can get all the way to the hoop, get to that left hand. Yeah, he had to play last night. I keep on saying it. Just left-handed players crack me up. It was in transition. The right hand was there, but he goes to his left hand, right where the defender was to his left, and somehow he finishes on the left. Makes the layup, so it doesn't really matter. But I really think if Boyd shoots well this year, Wisconsin's ceiling is super high. I previously thought kind of the biggest X factor for Wisconsin to reach their potential is Winter just taking a massive step. And that's big. Like, I would like Winter to take a big step, and I think he will be better. I don't know if he'll be reaching the ceiling that I think he still can reach. That might be a year from now. But I think my biggest thing is I just think Boyd has to stay healthy. But if Boyd can shoot that ball well, man, this team is going to be tough. And I want to shout out Rohde before I ask you who your biggest X factor is. Rohde's better than I thought. And you've been high on Rohde. I've said I'm more of a Janicki guy. I like seeing Janicki out there, but I'm liking what I see from Rohde. Savvy, can shoot the ball well. He had an athletic move against Campbell where, I didn't think he had that in his bag, where he drove baseline and finished. And I was like, that looks pretty good. He's 6'6". Yeah, Mike, I'll ask you, what's your biggest X factor for this team to reach their ceiling?
So it's funny you finished with Rohde, and I actually think he is the X factor for them because I think you're going to get pretty consistent production from Boyd, Blackwell, and Winter. I think those guys, for me, just kind of looking at what they do, Winter might fluctuate up and down a little bit because the front courts in the Big Ten and across the country, there are some really good big guys, big power forwards, big centers that he's going to have to deal with. And I still think he'll, hold up super well in a lot of his matchups and win those. But I think if Rohde wins his matchup a lot and majority of the games, that's really the X factor for me. Also, I'm seeing a lot of advanced things with him. You always have a Boyd who can get downhill, especially to his left hand. And Blackwell likes to get to his left hand as well. And Rohde is that third ball handler who actually can play both sides of the floor. And for me, he is the best pick and roll player they have on the floor. Nick Boyd is a great scorer. He gets downhill, and he causes havoc by getting into the actual lane and collapsing defenses, which is part of the pick and roll. But in terms of just making the correct read, having the correct spacing and the timing, Rohde's got an incredible dribble timing and spacing feel for that pick and roll, especially with Winter. He's dropped a couple of dimes. He's really a really good decision maker out of that pick and roll. And what Wisconsin is doing offensively right now is they're basically running what's called a European motion, where they, have a big in the middle, they set one side ball screen, hopefully it's empty, and then you go into action of you swing it to the big man into a dribble handoff on the other side. And when Rohde's on that second side, he is making great decisions, great plays out of that. And I think for me, if he can be consistent at a high level, teams are going to really struggle because he's seeing teams' third defender. He's not seeing their best defender. And that's where he's going to be able to be really, really aggressive. And especially coming out of that pick and roll. So for me, he's the biggest one. Obviously, shooting comes and goes, but this team is interesting for sure.
And what's also interesting is the fact that they had 9 turnovers yesterday and they scored 97 points. And it's so early in the season to have your turnovers limited that much, and also against Oklahoma in the exhibition. I believe they turned it over less than 10 times. So that's super encouraging for a team that has been together for not too long at all. Like, this team has been together for a few months. For them to be meshing that well where they're not turning the ball over that much, that is a huge positive sign. And Mike, before I continue, I should have asked you this earlier. Microphone, audio okay?
Oh yeah, we're good. You're sounding great.
Awesome. I just have trauma, man. I have trauma from interviews that I was thrilled about that have gone because audio is ass.
I understand. You're good.
But yeah. So moving on, I got to have a little fun here. I heard someone yesterday say that Andrew Rohde reminds them of Sam Dekker, and I couldn't disagree with that more. That I think I know why they made that comparison. Because he looks just like Sam Dekker, like aesthetically similar hairline, white dude, lengthy guy. They look very similar, but there is nothing similar in their games at all. So that one cracked me up that I heard a Sam Dekker comparison to Andrew Rohde, just a little bit off there. And I don't think that's the first time I've heard that either, which is just, that's just the average fan. That's just the average fan will make comparisons like that. I want to pivot over to this next one that I had fun with. I was talking with my old man yesterday, and I asked him, I said, if LeBron James, 40-year-old LeBron, right now, was on Northern Illinois lost 97-72, would they have beaten that Wisconsin team last night?
The 40-year-old LeBron James right now?
Yeah, right now. LeBron right now.
Yes.
I agree.
Like, 40-year-old LeBron James, so this is the thing people need to understand. It's a 40-minute game in college. You get a break every 4 minutes. So yeah. LeBron James, he might be dealing with some back problems, but if he's healthy, like, no questions asked. Who's guarding him?
No one's guarding him.
Who's dealing with that? He's going to go get 60 if he wants to, and then, I'll just spray it out to open shooters. Like, you have to – it's not possible.
Yeah. No,
Best player
totally
in the world,
agree.
College kids. I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had a fun one thinking about that if LeBron, because there was a clear, just huge discrepancy between Wisconsin and Northern Illinois. If you throw LeBron on them, how do they do? Yeah, but I think it's too much. No one's guarding LeBron. Like, you'd probably need to put, Blackwell on him, and then he's way too small. Because everyone else.
How do you score? By. He fouls out. Out.
Like Rohde, he's just going to get right by with the speed, or he's just too strong. Or with the big men, he's just going to blow by. He would be a problem, yeah. And I think LeBron is still top 10, 15 player in the world. So just a fun little hypothetical right there. But yeah, just looking around, I also just looking at some individual players as we, get closer to wrapping this up. I want to give a shout out to Janicki. Yes, he went 1 of 7 from the field, but I just loved how many steals did he have? 3 steals again. He had 4 steals in the first game. That dude is quick. He is really, really quick. He's a legit 6'5". He's lengthy. And I think he's going to have some good block shots this year. He's a quick jumper. I don't know if he's a guy who's just a massive vertical jumper, but he's a quick jumper. He's at a solid vert, but it's not anything insane. It's not AJ Storr jumping, but I think he's a quick jumper who's going to block some shots on closeouts or chase down blocks. I think he's going to have some of that this season. But I love Janicki's energy, and we were talking about this before the show, and if you just want to talk to the audience about it, but you see some comparisons to you when you were a sophomore, just being an energy guy, and I was saying that I don't really see Janicki. I don't know how well I see him shooting the ball. I hope he gets to the 30s. That's my goal for him. I hope he gets to the 30s, but I don't even care. I just love that he is an energizer bunny. He is all over the place, and I love it.
Yeah, he's a guy who comes in, and for me, he's a really great bench guy. In terms of he might come in and wreck a game, but he's not going to wreck it in a way that will be bad for the Badgers. The way he will wreck it is if he gets too many fouls or gets a little over anxious. But in terms of his activity level, shooting, passing lanes, he steps on the floor and he's in go mode right away. And he really takes that activity to another level. That's one of his greatest skills. People never really understand that effort is actually a skill. And the amount you give is actually direct correlation of how active you are. And he has a really nice nose for the ball. He's in active passing lanes. I think for him, Especially when I was a sophomore. I started the first part of the year. I had a really good preseason and played well, and I was just a little anxious a lot. I wanted to do super well, and my role was, hey, I'm going to go be a defender. I'm going to be all over the place, try and get offensive rebounds, disrupt the game in the way I know how to, with feel and effort. And at times that got me into a little bit of trouble just because I would, go a little too fast. And we were talking before, especially with his shooting, like I think he has great mechanics. His actual rhythm of his shot looks pretty good when he knocks it down. The biggest thing for him is he needs to kind of translate being an energizer bunny all the time to when he's shooting to actually take a quick breath, to take a half a second longer on his jumper and really lock in. And I don't need to get it off quite as fast, but then the rest of his game needs to stay at that pace. So for me, it's, I remember I had a few of those problems. I had we were talking about it. He airballed a pretty wide open three in the corner, and I very vividly remember in my career, I was a sophomore. We went down to Iowa. We took an L down there. I was on the left wing, and I airballed it by about 2 or 3 feet. Got in the gym the next like 3 or 4 days because I think we played on a Tuesday, and then that following Saturday we played against Ohio State when they were number one, and I knocked down I think 3 or 4. I think I knocked down 3 or 4 threes that game. So, as a younger player, sometimes nerves, anxiety can get the best of you, but as long as he gets back in the gym and keeps working on it, and like I said, he's got good mechanics. It's just more about him finding his rhythm with his jumper and understanding, hey, I have an extra second to take my time, make sure I shoot this ball with my rhythm, not the rhythm of the game that I've been playing. So we'll see, but he's a really exciting player, especially off the bench. He's going to be a good defender for them. I'm excited to see his growth as well.
Yeah, when you're coming off the bench and your role is to be the energy guy, do you think down the road, once he becomes a starter potentially, say 2 years from now or next year if he is the starter, do you think that's something where he can just settle in a little bit more, and perhaps he can't play with that same chaotic energy, but at the same time, like, do you think he settles in a little bit to a shot?
Yeah, I think it does a lot. I know for me coming into a game off the bench, even though I was an energy guy, it just allowed me to kind of calm down for a second and like feel the flow of games. That was one thing I always really paid attention to when I was a sophomore. Tim Jarmus was the guy who started over me. And there would be times where, Tim was knocking shots down and maybe I'd be the first big off the bench, but I was usually the first guy off the bench and at the wing spot. And I just remember, later in the season, especially, I found myself not starting games, but I was closing games out. And that's kind of the biggest thing coming off the bench. That as a starter, you can have those minutes and you can have that repetition, and maybe you're better as a starter. But depending on each game, I know for me, I was closing games out as a sophomore. Big Ten tournament stuff, I was playing super well, and I found that coming off the bench allowed me to really find my rhythm easier. And then I moved into the starting role as a junior and a senior, and yeah, those nerves kind of still never went away. They took a long time. I still had them as a pro. I don't have them anymore. I'm pretty good now, but that's something that definitely the approach changes when you come from a starter to the bench. But I think Janicki's that's how he plays. Like I don't think that's going to change if he's a starter or off the bench. I think that's his skill set and he knows it right now, and he's going to push that button to his advantage to make sure he gets to stay on the floor because I know that's his ultimate goal.
Yeah. And I was just talking about this yesterday with a friend of mine, but I always think when you feel nerves like that, it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing because that means you really care about something. You're involved in something that you're really passionate about. And there's a lot of people who don't have that at all. So I think when you feel those nerves, just running right into the face of fear is always just the move, and embracing the nerves and embracing the fear. And yeah, I also just before we wrap this up, I think I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Do you think over under on a 6 seed? I've asked this before. Do you think we're going to be under or over on a 6 seed? And then Nick Boyd. Do you think we're going to see Nick Boyd have his highest point total, his point average that he's had so far in his 6-year career? I believe the highest was 14 last year at San Diego State.
To answer the first question, I believe I said over on the 6 seed with this team. I'm willing to push it up to, I think they're going to be at least a 4 seed in the tournament, if not a 3. They look like that. I haven't watched a ton of other teams in college basketball. I watched a few highlights here and there. I watched, I think who was Florida was playing Arizona, somebody like that. I've seen a few of those higher profile teams. Duke looks pretty good. Obviously, you got the Blue Bloods, but I think this team is definitely a top 4 seed. They should be competing in the Big Ten for some higher, at least a first round bye in the Big Ten tournament, maybe even the double bye, hopefully. I see that. And then in terms of Nick Boyd, he has been given the keys to a team and a coach that wants to score 90. They want to play up tempo. They want to play fast. He's allowed to make mistakes in transition. He is allowed to be an engine, and he has taken that responsibility to start already, from, very start of the year with the red-white scrimmage, and he's continued to produce and know, hey, this is my job. I have to be this team's engine. Blackwell is obviously a scorer, but being an engine of a team is a little bit different than being just the scorer of a team. He's pushing pace, he's getting into the paint, he's collapsing defenses, he's finding guys, he's getting things rolling. As they like to say, he's getting the machine moving, right? And so for me, I think it's pretty easily he can average around 16, 17 a game, especially if he's given that green light. He's going to be shooting at least 12 to 15 shots a game. Him, Blackwell, and Winter, they're going to split probably around 45 shots a game between those three. So if he has that opportunity, he'll probably explode for a couple 30-point games, just like Blackwell did before. But and this is the other thing that's great, because he has great players around him. He's not just defenses aren't just loading up on him like he had last year when he was in San Diego State. Defenses got to deal with him, Winter, Blackwell, Rohde. They got to deal with stuff too. It's not just his show. So I definitely think it's an over on his career year as well.
Yeah. So okay, and I think that's a good stopping point. I'll note that a few things I'll note is Nick Boyd had 16 field goal attempts. Next closest was Blackwell with 8. I like the confidence I see from Boyd. That's a big thing. Boyd seems really confident, and that should help his shooting this season. Shout out to Isaac Gard, 1 minute, 5 points. I mean, good for him. That's an exciting thing to have.
Young Isaac.
Yeah.
Isaac. He was a kid when I was running around. So
yeah,
that's 15 years ago. He's a grown human now. Good for him. Good to see him get in the gym and get. I think it was his second made 3 of his career, and clearly a career high if you've only ever made one of the 3.
The last shout out I'll give is Daniel Freitag, former Wisconsin Hooper, had 20 points last night for Buffalo in a win. So shout out to him. Have a good relationship with him, and sure he'll be back on the channel in the future. I think, Mike, is there anything else you want to discuss, or is this a good stopping point?
No, I think we're good, man. It's good to be back on the show, and we're looking forward to our conversation next week.
Yeah, we're laying the foundation. So if you know anyone who would enjoy some Badger content, especially Mike has a really high basketball IQ, a great basketball mind, feel free to share it with them, because I think, I might be a little biased. I think we have as good of a Wisconsin show as there is out there, but we're laying the foundation right now. And thank you for watching, and we will see you guys soon.